Thank you so much for having me. How amazing to have 4 days to focus specifically on in my community we call them Jarjum, on our little ones. Really sport. I'm also really pleased that everybody's in sneakers. I made the somewhat radical choice to wear sneakers while presenting because I'm clumsy. So I'm really happy to see that everybody else did. First and foremost, Uncle Moogie, beautiful, welcome to country. Thank you so much for granting us safe passage on your land. I pay my respects to the Kaurna people, their ancestors, those who have left us and living in the dream time, and those who continue to guide us like him and his family. I've had the pleasure of being in Adelaide and being welcomed onto his country a number of times. It's always wonderful to spend time in his culture. So today, I bet you, when you thought about the concept of growing up and you've reflected on your growing up, I bet you it was pretty different to what I reflected on and what my growing up was like and what I hope and dream for my community and growing up in this country. At the moment, I don't know if you know, but most of the population of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and definitely it's bulging over the next 10 years, are right in the pocket of our consumers. So we have a significant responsibility in paediatrics to be able to reverse this thing we keep talking about, closing the gap in health outcomes. Definitely a risk because the population is young and it's getting younger, but it means it's a great opportunity. If us and our partners in healthcare can actually do something about this particular group, we have a shot at actually closing the gap. Now, in my community, it is customary to share everything you know, everything that you do, everything that you are, everything that our community is with our younger people. And that's no exception in my household. My paid job is the Executive Director of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Engagement at Children's Health Queensland, but my actual job is a parent to 3 Jarjum, Cooper, Hayden and Maddie, and about 35 nephews and nieces at this point and growing. So as any good Aboriginal parent, I put them to work. Now, my daughter watches a lot of YouTube, so I have to warn you, this is about take number 76. I said to her, tell me what you like to do as a 9-year-old living in Brisbane, and tell me what your hopes and dreams are for growing up.
Hi, my name is Maddie Young, and I am a proud Kalali girl that lives in Brisbane, Queensland. I love to go to the movies and shops with my friends. I also like to visit my grandparents, aunties, uncles, and cousins. I am really good at sport, and also on weekends, I really love to go out to breakfast with my family. What I'm thinking about when I grow up is I want to be an Olympic runner, have 4 kids, 3 dogs, and a big house that can fit all of my family members in.
Fairly, yes. I think she gets that from her dad. So fairly standard dreams and aspirations, a pretty common conversation that you would all have with your children all of the time. And you think, yeah, okay, we're going to build some things around you to help you achieve those dreams and aspirations. I have fear in my community for my children and my nephews and nieces and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children, because it isn't actually solely up to their dreams and aspirations. Because of the impact of colonisation, we have to be real. The systems that were built to support our young people to thrive are actually failing them, and rapidly. And the Closing the Gap statistics are telling us they're failing them more and more every year. So my beautiful daughter has dreams, goals, aspirations that really have nothing to do with whether she as an individual can go about achieving them, because the systems that she relies upon to help her to do that are inherently flawed. Barack Obama. We all love him. We all love the inspiration that he brings, and he's famous for saying often, bit of hard work, bit of kindness, bit of work ethic, bit of drive, and it doesn't matter where you come from or what you look like, you can achieve anything. I respectfully disagree, Mr. Obama. It takes a hell of a lot more for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children to thrive. The opposite end of inspiration spectrum, Kim K, recently became infamous for giving something of the same advice about women in business and how they just have to get off their butts, of all the people to talk about butts, to get off your butts and work. Hard work can get you everything. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are the oldest surviving cultures on the planet. They're the hardest workers, arguably, on the face of Earth, and yet are the most vulnerable in the world in a number of statistics. So clearly it isn't about hard work either, Kim. So let's unpack what little Maddie had to say about growing up. She said she loves to hang out at the movies and the shops. Well, that's good. I grew up in a small regional town and I don't remember a week of shopping where I wasn't followed by a security guard or had my bags checked, because there was an expectation that I would steal things because of who I am and the neighbourhood that I lived in. In fact, the same town actually bars children who live in particular suburbs at the moment in 2023. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children are overwhelmingly misrepresented in youth justice. In Queensland, you're 24 times more likely to be in youth detention if you're an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander child, and despite only being 6% of the population nationally, half of our youth detention centres are populated with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children. I'm not thrilled about Maddie going to the shops and to the movies with her friends. She loves to visit her grandparents, aunties and uncles. Well, that's great, as long as they're living. Unfortunately, Maddie doesn't actually have an Aboriginal grandparent who's still alive. She's 9 because of premature death. I don't need to tell you about the life expectancy difference, but it currently is about 8 years, and in some remote communities as much as 15. So her ability to enjoy what we take for granted, a multi-generational existence, is significantly hampered by life expectancy and the substandard healthcare that's offered to her elders. She really loves to go out to breakfast with the family. She does. She's very expensive. She's a little girl, but she eats a lot. 1 in 3 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families report food insecurity as a problem that they live with every day in their household. That's 1 in 3 children that you will see, 1 in 3 children that goes to school who doesn't have enough to eat or enough of the right food to eat. In our country, that's shameful. In some remote communities, it's as much as 35% of the community report food insecurity daily. Oh, I missed the really good at sport. Obviously confident also. She is actually very good at sport. However, she's also a really bad asthmatic. It's likely that over time, she's at a significantly higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes, psychological distress, advanced mental health illness, and probably obesity. 1 in 3 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people report living with a long-term respiratory condition. So she might be great at sport now, but she's got quite a hill to climb if she wants to retain that as a skill. She wants to be an Olympic runner. Great. Let's say she gets through all of the burden of disease barriers and learns to live with asthma and continues to run as fast as she does. Her employment prospects are not great either. At the moment, Year 12 attainment for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people sits at 66%, as opposed to 95% for non-Indigenous people. The employment rate, we're proud to say that the employment rate improved. It's 49%, that's half of our community are gainfully employed, as opposed to 75% of the non-Indigenous population. So she might have dreams to be whatever she wants, but it isn't just about the dreams. 4 kids and 3 dogs. This was interesting because we have a dog. She doesn't do anything for the dog, so I don't know how she thinks she's going to take care of 3 of them. And 4 kids, my goodness. I wanted 4 too. She's the youngest, so read into that what you will. If Maddie survives pregnancy, the maternal mortality rate is so high for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women. It's 3 times as high. She's 3 times as more likely to die during pregnancy than her non-Indigenous friends. If she survives pregnancy, it is likely that she will have a child that has unhealthy birth weight. 88% of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander girls are born healthy, as opposed to 95% for non-Indigenous girls. And we're celebrating that because it gets better. She wants to live in a huge house. She's going to need 3 dogs and 4 kids. But the median average income in an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander house at the moment is $553. She's going to need to curtail that dream a little bit. That's opposed to $915 of a non-Indigenous family. These are very dire. What you're feeling in your gut right now is deep disappointment and we should be. It's okay to talk about what we have done as a community to the hopes and dreams and aspirations of people like Maddie. Because if we don't talk about it and admit it, we won't fix it. So it's okay to feel that deep pit of disappointment. If you do, that means you can be a leader in this change. This is a really good thing. So is there hope for Maddie? Yes, absolutely. She's got lots of strengths. She's very confident, obviously. She's connected to her country. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have an inextricable, fundamental connection to country. It's important that we celebrate that. We as healthcare providers have got to stop assuming that where we provide care is the most appropriate place for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Where they are connected ancestrally is the best for their physical, mental and spiritual health, and we need to get better at providing care closer to home. We need to acknowledge that the connection to the land and the waterways and to the people that are on it and occupy it is the best thing for their healthcare, and not our facilities or our opinions about how to deliver it. She is strong in culture. She tells everybody. I have a friend who's Serbian who offered her cake that they made in Serbia. She said, I can't have that, I'm Aboriginal. It was so embarrassing. We only eat Aboriginal cake. And so she's very confident in her culture. But that is a strength. That is something that we can hold on to. Culture is pride, it's resilience, and it's an incredibly great healthcare tool. Culture is a protective factor. It has been determined by thousands and thousands of different research papers internationally. It gives hope, it gives pride, it gives resilience. You all know that if a child has pride and resilience and something to live for, they have power, they have strength, and you can use that in healthcare. It's important that we don't shy away from that with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children, because it has survived this country for tens of thousands of years. She has great role models. Those are her brothers, both looking at her, wondering why she got to be in the middle of the rugby league photo. And the other sporting role models, health role models, dancers, musicians, all can be relied upon as powerful health tools. At the moment, we look at this in a deficit model. We say all Aboriginal people can't be sports people. All Aboriginal people can't be singers. Yes, they can, and use every single one of them because they are leading a community somewhere and somewhere positive. Very important, and I'm very passionate about making healthcare role models, and you do that by building your workforce. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the spaces of where we deliver care can provide care that nobody else can, because that child understands they look like them. They know what perspective they have. It's the same. They have a lived experience that's shared, and they share the same connection to culture, country, and community. If you can have health role models in your spaces, you're already halfway there, because the kids already have a space of trust. But if you cannot, you be the role model. So how are we doing this? Oop, I went the wrong way. How are we doing this at Children's Health Queensland? So in Queensland, legislation was passed in 2020 to mandate that every hospital and health service must have a health equity strategy that is co-designed with the local community. So we co-designed our equity strategy with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander traditional owners, our consumers, our workforce, our community control partners. It took us a year, and we're the only statewide paediatric hospital and health service, so it wasn't easy. There are 175 registered traditional owners in Queensland, all of which have a very clear view about what for their children. But what it meant was we built a strategy that was grounded in the voice and the opinions of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So the services that we deliver will work because they came from the people who need them to be delivered. The legislation set out key priority areas that we must follow: eliminate racism, increase equitable access, influence social, cultural and economic determinants of health, deliver sustainable and culturally safe care, and most importantly, work with the community to build the models of care. And at CHQ, we understand how important it is to have an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander workforce to lead the charge towards health equity. So we implemented the last key priority area to strengthen our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander workforce. Actively eliminate racial discrimination and institutional racism. I can't tell you how pleased I am to be able to say those words out loud and not feel like I have to run from it or cringe. We have to talk about this. We know it's real. Let's stop pretending racism doesn't exist. It does. We all know it. We know that institutional racism is deeply entrenched in our services, and in particularly in healthcare and justice. And the minute we're comfortable with saying that out loud, and move to build ways to measure it and eradicate it and all be part of changing it, then we don't have to talk about it in the next 10 years. At Children's Health Queensland, the first thing we did with our board was build an institutional racism audit. So we're really lucky in Queensland. There's a really great consultant, Adrian and Henrietta Mari, who built an institutional racism matrix. It talks about your workforce, your funding, your communications, your governance, your commitment to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health, and it apportions you a score. So we as a board and executive do this every year now. We also talk about our workforce and our patient complaints, and we put that all in one audit, and we have a very open and robust discussion about just how institutionally racist our organisation is. And nobody challenges it. Nobody cringes, nobody runs from that conversation because we're accepting it because we know that it's real. And because of that, we've been able to make a lot of change in a very short period of time. In terms of equitable access to health, the first thing we recognise is that as a hospital and health service that belongs to Queensland Health, we are not the leaders in culturally safe care. The Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community-controlled health organisation sector in Australia has been around for 50 years, and they have community-led boards, community-led models of care. They are the experts in culturally safe care. It's not debatable. So we built a service level agreement with them. We agreed to co-commissioning, we agreed to shared workforce, we agreed to shared build of models of care, and we agreed for integrated learning. Some of our care pathways at the moment, the first one we had was an ENT pathway. So we now have a dedicated Saturday clinic where Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children who are patients of our community control provider get to access specialists that would normally take them up to 9 to 12 months to be able to see. The Saturday is dedicated just to them to see the specialists that they need, and if they are converted to surgery, unfortunately about 40% of them are now, then they get straight onto our surgery wait list. Culturally safe services, so important for us to build places and spaces that are grounded in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture, not tokenistic, not symbolic, but genuinely grounded in the culture, which means the spaces are shaped differently. I have 14 brothers and sisters. So if I use some of the rooms that we have at CHQ with my 14 brothers and sisters, I would have to select which of my siblings were going to be able to come in and provide care to me. That's a significant barrier to me to become well. So we're committed at CHQ to make spaces that actually suit the community that we're trying to support. I have 27 seconds left, so I'll choose my favourite one. What can you do? Ask about our culture, celebrate our culture, empower our young people to say what they want in care and actually deliver it. Challenge misconceptions. You know they're there, you hear them all the time. Challenge them and be a leader in the change. It is not enough for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to do this on our own. We did not ask for the impact of colonisation, and there's not enough of us to turn this around. So we need you and your colleagues to be leaders in care. And if we do that, my little Maddie might just become an Olympic runner with 4 children, 3 dogs, a huge house, and a massive network of family that she can rely upon to continue to support you to keep our country safe for the next tens of thousands of years. Thank you. Thanks so much. Just want to put this up. Oh. Thank you. Thanks so much. That's very lovely.
Thank you. Some incredibly hard-hitting facts there.
Yeah.
Although I think some also commonalities in 9-year-old children.
Yes, everyone's got one.
I think it's not until we actually hear those facts, and I didn't know all of those facts, but when we hear those facts that we actually really begin to appreciate the massive divide that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders face. And that's your lived experience.
Yep. Yeah, it's really startling, and I think you can't hide from it though. You have to empower people with the evidence and the understanding, and it's not something, as you say, you have to rest in that grief and understand that this is the country that we live in every day. We can't pretend it doesn't happen. We all do know it. And until we can really look at that evidence in an honest and brave way, we have no hope of turning it around. It doesn't mean we have to sit in it uncomfortably, we can talk about it, but until we talk about it and actually really examine the evidence and are clear about it, we can't change it.
I think you made an incredible point, when we need to talk about it, is actually to acknowledge that, to acknowledge the institutional racism. And I think sometimes when we say those words, they're so emotive that people get very uncomfortable in saying them, and they tend to shy away. And I think you're absolutely 100% right. We have to really make ourselves stand up to that and acknowledge that, because if we never do that, we can't ever move forwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everybody knows. It's one of those things that we all talk about with our safe spaces, but we don't talk about it out loud. Those days are done. We have to talk about it. And I think, I say to our board all the time, I've read this incredible article, and it's a friend of mine, Chris Burke, who wrote it. And he said, institutional racism exists in organisations that don't have racist people in it. It's the systems and the policies and the processes that have become so deeply entrenched with our social systems and structures that actually we can't point to them all the time. And it's not about individuals walking around being directly racist, it's the things that we continue to perpetuate in services that cause exclusion for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And that's why it's so difficult to talk about and see out loud, but we have to. And we all know they are. I mean, a perfect example is this crazy 3-strike rule. Do you guys have this in your... So 3 times you don't attend and you go to the end of the wait list. And when I first heard about this, I said, well, why? That doesn't even make practical sense, let alone racial sense. So 3 times, it's a public health service. Surely you can try to come as many times as you want before you're seen. But actually that particular policy has an unequal impact on the most vulnerable. And we all know it does, and yet we still do it every week. I still have challenging conversations in parts of the health system where they deliver this, and they're doing it knowing that it has an unequal impact on vulnerable communities, but that's just because that's what the system has always been, that's what the policy does. And that's why I think challenging those things is really important, because we know that they exist at the detriment of the most vulnerable. We just need to be brave enough to call it out.
Yeah, 100%. Do we have any questions from the floor? We have our roving microphones going around. If you just raise your hand, or maybe sing out, because I can't see any of you, you're all dark. Well, I think you've probably answered all the questions that we might have had. I mean, there's so much to unpack there. Thank you so very, very much. Everyone, thanks to Angela.
Thank you.